Chapter 1. The wind carried the scent of autumn leaves as Maya stepped off the train onto the old station platform. She tightened her scarf around her neck, feeling the cool air brush across her cheeks. It had been 5 years since she last set foot in this small mountain town. 5 years since she left everything behind and built a new life in the city. Now, returning felt like opening a door she had locked long ago, and the sound of distant church bells echoed in her chest like a familiar but distant memory. Her suitcase, worn and patched at the corners, seemed heavier with each step she took toward the faded brick building that housed the only taxi stand. The driver, an elderly man with a friendly smile and eyes that crinkled at the edges, loaded her bag into the trunk without a word. As the car bumped along the narrow road toward her family home, Maya stared out at the changing leaves, their fiery reds and golds reminding her of all the stories she once told herself. Stories of hope, loss, and the promise of reconciliation. Fapine. House looked exactly the same. Whitewashed walls, green shutters now chipped and peeling, and a front porch that sagged slightly under the weight of years. It stood at the end of a long driveway lined with old oak trees, their branches tangled like the memories in Maya's mind. She paid the driver and watched him drive away before stepping onto the porch, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The door was unlocked, a detail she both appreciated and resented. Inside, the air smelled of dust, lavender sachets, and something else she could not name, a faint trace of her mother's perfume. Each room felt frozen in time. The living room still had the faded floral sofa where her grandmother used to knit, sweaters, and the piano in the corner that hadn't been tuned in years. Maya's footsteps echoed as she walked from room to room, her gaze lingering on the picture frames. There was a family portrait from 10 years ago. Her parents, arms around each other, smiling beneath a bright sun. Maya, only 7 at the time, beaming with innocence. Next to it lay a smaller frame of her mother alone, taken just before she had fallen ill. Maya swallowed hard and turned away, tears pricking at the back of her eyes. In the hallway, she paused, by her old bedroom door. It had once been painted sky blue, with white clouds drifting across the ceiling. She hesitated, then stepped inside. Sunlight filtered through lace curtains, scattering patterns on the wooden floor. The bed was still neatly made, a quilt folded at the foot. On the desk, her journals were stacked, their pages yellowed and brittle. She reached out, fingers trembling, and opened the top one to the first page. In her childish handwriting, she had written, "Today I felt happy. I want to stay happy forever." She closed the journal and folded it into her arms, as if holding a fragile bird. That night, Maya lay in that bed, listening to the creaks and sighs of the house. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl hooted. She realized that while the house had stayed the same, she had changed in ways she could not yet understand. Chapter 2. The next morning, Maya woke to the sound of pots clattering in the kitchen. Her father, who had always been a man of few words, hummed softly as he prepared breakfast. Steam rose from a kettle on the stove, and the smell of coffee filled the room. Maya sat at the kitchen table, her fingers wrapped around a warm mug, as her father placed 2 plates of pancakes before her. "I didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice low and steady. He wore an old flannel shirt and jeans, his hair now flecked with gray. Maya looked up, surprised by the vulnerability in his gaze. "I had to," she replied, her voice catching. "I needed to see for myself." He nodded and sat across from her. They ate in silence for a while, the only sounds the ticking clock and the occasional creak of floorboards. Finally, he spoke. "I miss her every day," he said, staring at his plate. "Your mother, she was the heart of this house." Maya felt a lump in her throat. It was true. Before her mother fell ill, laughter had filled every corner of this home. Now it felt hollow, as if the walls themselves mourned her absence. She reached across the table and placed her hand over her father's. "I miss her too," she whispered. "I've missed you both." Her father closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. "I've tried to hold this place together for you and for her memory, but it's been hard." Maya squeezed his hand. "Then let me help." She paused, gathering courage. "I think it's time I finally let go of some of the guilt I've carried all these years." Her father opened his eyes, studying her face. "Guilt?" She nodded, tearing up. "I left when she needed me most. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I ran away from my grief." He reached across and wiped a tear from her cheek. "You were a child, Maya." "No," she said, her voice strong despite the tears. "I was old enough to know. I made a choice." For a long moment they sat in silence. Then her father stood and walked to the window, looking out at the yard where autumn leaves danced in the breeze. "Maybe it's time we both stop running." Maya watched the sunlight catch the dust motes in the air. In that simple kitchen, over pancakes and coffee, she felt the first stirrings of peace. Chapter 3. Later that afternoon, Maya decided to walk to the old lake where she and her mother used to fish. The path wound through a grove of maples, their leaves like flames against the sky. She moved slowly, each step stirring memories, her mother's gentle laughter, the feel of a fishing rod in her small hands, the proud smile on her face when she caught her first fish. At the water's edge, the lake was still and glassy, reflecting the sky like a mirror. Maya knelt and dipped her fingers into the cool water. It rippled outward, carrying with it a long-forgotten feeling of calm. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, letting the sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves, the call of a distant bird, wash over her. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "Maya, is that you?" She turned to see her childhood friend Lucas walking toward her. He was crouching beside her in no time, his familiar grin lighting up his face. He held a fishing rod in one hand and a tackle box in the other. "I thought about you when I came here today," he said, setting down his gear. "Remember how competitive you used to be? You always insisted we race to see who'd catch the first fish." Maya laughed, the sound mingling with the breeze. "And you always let me win." Lucas shook his head. "I let you win because I knew how much it meant to you. He paused, looking at her. You've been gone a long time. I know, Maya admitted. I'm sorry, I just disappeared. Lucas sat beside her, watching the water. We all have reasons, but you're back now. That's what matters. They launched their lines and settled into a comfortable silence, the quiet punctuated by occasional splashes and distant calls of birds. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Maya felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. When a small fish tugged at her line, she gasped and reeled it in. Lucas cheered, clapping his hands. See? You still got it. Maya smiled, her heart light. She looked at Lucas, realizing how much she had missed him. He was the one person who knew the girl she used to be, and the woman she was becoming. As she released the fish back into the water, she felt a gentle tug at her own heart. This place, these people, they still belonged to her as much as she belonged to them. Chapter 4 that evening, Maya unpacked a box of her mother's belongings in the attic. Among old photographs and trinkets, she found a stack of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Curious, she untied them and began to read. Each letter was addressed to her father, written in her mother's elegant handwriting. They spoke of dreams, of traveling the world together, of starting a family vineyard, of growing old side by side. Maya's chest tightened. She had always known her parents loved each other deeply, but reading these letters felt like touching their rawest hopes and fears. In one letter dated just a month before her mother's diagnosis, she wrote, "Please promise me, no matter what happens, you will find joy again. Promise me you won't let grief steal your future." Maya realized her mother had been thinking of her daughter's well-being even as she faced her own mortality. Tears blurred the words, and she pressed the letter against her heart. She had thought of grief as a shadow she carried alone. Now she saw it was a bond, a way her mother's love reached across time. In the dim attic light, Maya made a promise of her own. She would honor her mother's wish. She would find joy again, not out of obligation, but out of love. Chapter 5 Next morning, Maya and her father set out to clean up the overgrown garden. The place where her mother had once grown roses now lay tangled with weeds. As they worked side by side, planting seeds and trimming branches, they talked, really talked, for the first time in years. "I've missed this," her father said, wiping sweat from his brow. He held up a small sapling. "She always wanted an apple tree here?" Maya knelt and dug a small hole. "Then let's plant it where she would have wanted." She pressed the roots into the earth, covering them with soil and patting it gently. As they stood back, the small tree looked fragile, yet hopeful, just like Maya felt. They spent the afternoon turning the garden into something new. The act of digging in the soil, of scrubbing stone paths and clearing away dead leaves, felt cathartic. Under the golden sun, Maya realized that healing could be as simple as hard work and shared laughter. When they finished, the garden looked different, not perfect, but alive. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said, "for giving this place new life." Maya smiled, breathing in the sweet scent of earth and budding flowers. "Thank you for letting me come home." Chapter 6. In the days that followed, Maya reconnected with her old friends. She taught young children at the local school, reading them stories about faraway lands. She helped at the community center, organizing a weekend festival to celebrate the harvest. Everywhere she went, people welcomed her with open arms and eager smiles. Yet there were moments when grief returned like a tide, washing over her unexpectedly. Song on the radio, the sight of a mother and daughter walking hand in hand. Each time Maya took a breath, whispered her mother's name, and let the tears fall. She learned that grief was not an enemy to be defeated, but a companion walking alongside her on this new path. One afternoon, as she walked through the town square, she saw a mural painted on the side of the old bakery. It depicted a woman in a flowing dress standing beneath a sky of golden stars. Beneath her feet, the words read, "Dream endlessly." Maya recognized her mother's favorite quote. She stood there, hands clasped, feeling a gentle warmth spread through her chest. In that moment, she understood that her mother's spirit lived on. In the garden, in the letters, in the hearts of everyone who remembered her kindness. Chapter 7. As autumn deepened, Maya and her father prepared for the annual autumn festival, the event her mother had loved most. They baked pies, strung lanterns, and rehearsed a piano duet, her father playing the bass notes, Maya playing the melody her mother once taught her. On the night of the festival, the whole town gathered under strings of glowing lights. Children danced around bonfires, couples strolled hand in hand, and the scent of cinnamon and roasting chestnuts filled the air. When it was time, Maya sat at the piano beneath the pavilion. Her father joined her, and together they began to play. The notes floated through the night, clear and pure. Maya's fingers trembled at first, but with each measure her confidence grew. She closed her eyes and imagined her mother standing beside them, smiling. The music swelled, carrying their shared love and grief into the starry sky. As the final chord faded, the crowd erupted into applause. Tears streamed down Maya's face, but her smile shone through. She opened her eyes and saw her father wiping his own tears. They embraced, and in that hug, Maya felt a lifting of something heavy, a release of sorrow, and the embrace of hope. Chapter 8. The morning after the festival, Maya stood by the lake once more. The world was quiet, bathed in soft dawn light. She breathed deeply, feeling the crisp air fill her lungs. In her hand, she held the first harvest apples from the new tree they had planted, a symbol of new beginnings. She tossed the apple gently into the water. It bobbed once, twice, then sank beneath the surface, leaving ripples that spread outward. Maya watched until the ripples faded, then turned and walked back toward the town. Her footsteps were light, her heart open. Back at home, she packed her suitcase again, this time not to leave, but to stay. She would continue her work at the school, help her father with the garden, and nurture the small vineyard she and her father planned to start. Most importantly, she would carry her mother's memory not as a burden, but as a gift. Maya paused on the front porch, looking at the house that had witnessed so much love and sorrow. She whispered a quiet vow, "I will live fully for you." Then, she stepped inside, ready to embrace the life waiting for her, woven from the threads of past and present, loss and love, grief and hope. And in that moment, Maya knew she was truly home.